Hey, so they're saying the quiet part out loud. They want us back in the home, producing babies, making dinner as women should be.
These men want us back in the home, barefoot and pregnant, serving them. And the way they plan on accomplishing this is through the government. Yes, they are using their votes to put people in power like Trump, who are going to make policies that will frustrate women until we simply give up on our education, our careers, and our independence as a whole. Let's get right into it.
Hey, so they're saying the quiet part out loud. They want us back in the home, producing babies, making dinner as women should be. Ugh. Lindsey Burke, the same person who authored this garbage, admitting that this was their plan all along, was also the same person who authored the education section of Project 2025, which, in combination with the Big Beautiful Bill and the Department of Education being basically blown to smithereens, a lot of what was in Project 2025 is already in motion. Not to mention, people are now de-incentivized to become teachers, nurses, fields that are typically dominated by women because they get less money in student loans. This is all on purpose. And why do they care so much about the declining birth rate? Easy. Number one, they need more workers to continue to make them billionaires and more people to sell stuff to. And number two, kids are super expensive and take up a lot of time. So if you're working multiple minimum wage jobs, because we all know that hasn't changed, and you're trying to put food on the table, trying to afford childcare, healthcare, all of those things, you don't really have time to stop and think, maybe this system is bad and I should try to do something about it. And of course, they're not going to do anything that would make people actually want to have children on their own free will, like any of these ideas that actually make sense and that other countries have. Instead, they want to force us and put us back in what they believe to be our place. Hey moms, do you really want your daughters growing up in a world where when you tell her she can be anything she wants to be, it's a lie?
Did you know that male doctors once claimed that studying too much would make women infertile? And that's why we were kept out of schools. So in 1873, a doctor by the name of Edward Clark from Harvard University published a book claiming that women's brains and their reproductive systems compete for energy. His theory was that if a woman studied math or Latin too hard, she would divert energy from her ovaries and become hysterical or barren. He even used the case study of a woman who supposedly fainted and ruined her health during exams, and this was taken as proof that women were not fit for higher education. It wasn't just fringe. Men in politics and men in medicine loved this theory because it justified keeping women out of universities. Also, thanks to this very wrong theory, schools created a rest period so that women during exams wouldn't overstrain themselves. But in 1876, a physician by the name of Mary Jacobi absolutely obliterated this nonsense theory with actual data. She studied hundreds of women, collected medical reports, and proved that women were absolutely capable of rigorous education. Her paper then won Harvard's prestigious Boylston Prize and dismantled Clark's theory forever. So yeah, men literally once claimed that women having an education would destroy their wombs until women used actual science to destroy them, and here we are today.
Men and society have always weaponized quote-unquote science against women. They create pseudo-scientific theories that they know are unlikely to be challenged or refuted because they know that science, including medical science involving women's issue, are very unlikely to be taken seriously by the scientific community and are also very unlikely to be studied by the scientific community. So they just make up bullshit about women, about our health, and even about women's psychology and behavior. They just make up these things and sell it to women as a means of controlling our choices and behavior. And they do this all under the disguise of doing it for our own good, for our own health, for our own mental health, for our own well-being as women.
They're trying to take away degrees that have predominantly women in them because they want us to make more babies. They're trying to bring that birth rate back up. Because let's be so for real, there's no reason why they would get rid of so many fields that predominantly have women in them. Nursing, social work, public health, DNP, physician's assistant. They're getting rid of these degrees because they want us to have babies. They want you to see that the degree that you're going towards has no value anymore. That all the loans that you took out wasn't worth it. And that the people who are going to go into those fields won't go into it anymore because they can't afford it. Because your loans are now capped at $20,000. They're trying to make us have babies. And someone might say, what does it have to do with the other? Just because you don't get a degree doesn't mean you have babies. But truth be told, and the science is there, the studies have been done, that women typically, if they don't get that education, if you're not in school, if you don't put that time in there, you're going to have kids more. You're more likely to have kids, and you're also more likely to have kids at a younger age. Let's be so for real. If the girl's like 20 to 34, 20 to 33, and she's not having kids, she's typically in school. She's typically getting some type of degree, her second degree, master's degree, or a third degree, whatever it may be, a certification. You're more likely to be in school. I'm not saying that it directly links to the other, but that's what they're trying to do. That's what they're trying to do.
Marriage is more important than your education in the end. Really, so is my education gonna wake up after being 15 years together and then say that they're no longer in love with me? Is my education gonna tell me that they cheated on me? Is my education gonna serve me divorce papers? The most dangerous person that a woman will meet in her lifetime is her husband, by the way. Is my education, is my bachelor's degree that's hanging on my wall gonna do that to me? No. Is my bachelor's going to potentially be the cause of my... Do you think my master's degree is one day going to sign a waiver to make sure that I'm not able to get my tubes tied? Do you think my future doctorate degree is going to vote for my autonomy to be removed from me? In fact, I argue, particularly because I'm a woman that you're directing this to, there is nothing more important for me as a woman than to get an education. I'm one of 2 women in my entire generational line to have a college education. By me going to college, I am literally rewriting history. If I got my doctorates, I would be the first person with my family to do so. So get your education, because marriage can wait.
Don't you find it funny how marriage is only better than education when it comes to women? Because think of it, how many times have you seen people commenting under posts of men's accomplishments and videos online and telling them that, oh, it's good that you have this, but marriage is the most important, or it's good that you accomplish this degree or this height in your career, but having children is the most important. If this thing is really important and not a trap, why are they not selling it to both men and women the same way?
I don't really like a woman who tries to be super educated either and try to like have these, intelligent conversations, because a lot of the times, like you could, and this is talked about by Socrates and a lot, like a woman could be very well educated, but that doesn't make them a good thinker. So they just might have a lot of these like facts in their brain, maybe from books they've read. They don't necessarily know how to interpret them properly. They won't make the right conclusions. So I just don't want a wife who's like wanting to argue about like, politics and like that all the time.
I hear men talk about this statistic a lot, that women hold double the student loan debt that men do. And it is true. A recent study showed that women hold about 2/3 of America's student loan debt. Part of this can be attributed to the fact that women now attend college at higher rates than men do, but it's not double. So why is the discrepancy so large? Well, you can blame the parents. I was actually shocked to see that recent studies have shown parents of sons were more likely to cover the full cost of college than parents of daughters. Parents of sons were also more likely to be saving for college compared to parents of daughters, and parents of sons were also more likely to take out loans on their kids' behalf than parents of daughters. Women are so often victims of like this daddy's money stereotype, like our dads pay for everything. It's the men. The men are being bankrolled by their parents and the women are forced to take out loans. They're preparing their sons for careers and they're preparing their daughters to have to marry a man for money to survive. It's one thing to be too poor to put your kids through college. Poverty is not a moral failing, but learning that parents are paying for their sons to go to college and not their daughters has really stopped me in my tracks. I doubt the men who mock women for student loan debt have any idea what the reasons are, but if you're gonna mock women for having student loan debt, make sure you mock men for leading women in every other type of debt.
This is so spot on, even now thinking of my own personal experience. Even though I do come from a country where student loans are not really a thing and parents normally are expected to fund their children's higher education, particularly when that child is in their late teens, early 20s, going into university, that parent is expected to fund their tuition and living expenses for the duration of that degree. But something I noticed in a lot of the cases, particularly in my own university, was that Many girls had to start some kind of small business to supplement their cost of living. Many girls had to start some kind of side hustle or to get some kind of small jobs at the side to supplement their cost of living. But that was almost never the case for the young guys in my class or in university in general. But that was never the case for the young guys in my school. Now thinking about it, except from the more older men who were already working and also funding their education by themselves. For the younger guys, none of them had to start a side hustle. None of them had to start this kind of small businesses that girls normally did in school. None of them had to take up any side jobs while studying in school. And these guys were allowed to focus fully on getting their education, while these girls had to worry about money and finding other sources of income while going to school.
You're a woman who has gone through your education, you've dedicated yourself to achieving a degree, your mother's generation wasn't able to achieve this, and you're the first person that's maybe gone to uni or got a bachelor's or got a master's or got a PhD. You think, right, I'm 31, I'd love to settle down, this would be amazing for me. Where are all of the men at? Not only now are you competing with all of the other increasing cohort of women that are high achievers with status, employment, and education, but you're also competing with a 21-year-old barista who still lives at home with her parents for this small cohort of guys.
As a woman who's done a PhD, none of us are competing for you. Alright? You are not the goal. And the thing is, this sort of language and this sort of rhetoric is harmful for both men and women. If you are treating people as social status symbols, then you can actually have a relationship with them. You treat them as something that can be obtained and kept. And this is the logic of the patriarchy. But the thing is as well, as the economy has gotten worse, we've used this neoliberal logic to also infringe on our relationships. And this is what we see with all this hustler culture, high value man, high value woman sort of language, because it reduces everybody down to their use value in the economy. Men will return to these old social conventions because it's useful to them in a failing economy. Margaret Thatcher said there is no such thing as society, only individuals and their families. What she meant is only men and the women at home that sustain them and do the unpaid labour that men rely on. And the biggest problem with these podcasts, like Diary of a CEO, like this philosophy man kind of modern wisdom, as Chris Williamson's called, is that there is absolutely no mention of systemic issues. Everything is put on the individual. This neoliberal logic, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps or whatever, enforces the idea that if you fail, you have no one else to blame. Ignores systemic and historical oppression. But it also turns us into all these mini projects. Like, if you are not self-optimizing, if you are not always reinventing yourself, then you will perish. It becomes all about speed, hyper-individualism, greed, and when relationships get swept up in this, then there is simply no point of being in one. Relationships are everything that this culture is not. It's about slowness, intimacy, it's about closeness. It's not about self-optimization, it's about otherness. Accepting that you are with somebody who is not yourself. And that's the challenge. It's not about objectification. It's about conversation and self-reflection and love. Remember, we can't have a democracy without informed citizens, and it's an emergency.
So the Heritage Foundation, who are the authors of Project 2025, that Trump is currently using as a human resources agency to hire for his administration, came out the other day saying that we need to stop educating women so that they will have more children. They've discovered that the higher level of education a woman has, the less likely she is to have a bunch of children. And it doesn't matter if they educate her on birth control, because they don't think that we should have birth control anymore. But more importantly, the more she learns about the world, the more she learns about how things work, she decides that maybe that's not the only way to have happiness in your life. I mean, yes, children can bring you happiness, but there are other ways to have a fulfilling life besides sitting home and taking care of children all day, if that's not what you want to do. So that's what the Heritage Foundation is pushing now, to make education less available to young women. So they want to cut out all of the student loans and scholarship programs that are available to women. So that's something to look forward to. Good luck with that.
There is currently a mass global effort right now to pull back women's rights and liberations in the world. And this is happening in every country, even in these countries that we see as pioneers of feminism and women's rights. This is even happening in America. Yes, America, the so-called land of the free. The thing is that when we think about these men fighting back against women's rights, we always imagine it to be this violent and aggressive uprising that is going to happen, mainly because that's what these men are known for. And also because that's what many of these men have threatened us with. They've threatened us that they are going to be violent about it and they are going to take away our rights aggressively. But what I'm saying is that these men are being strategic about this thing. These men are noticing that they are not the only one not getting what they want from women. Society is also not getting what they want from us. Governments are also not getting what they want from us. The birth rate decline is not just a social problem. It is an economical one. These billionaires and governments are saying that their workforce is going down. Their consumers are going to be non-existent. Unless, of course, they do something to force women back into the home and back into the kitchen. But they can't come out here and tell us how they really think. They can't come out here and be like, oh, women, you are no longer allowed to go to school. Oh, women, you are no longer allowed to own a bank account. Oh, women, you are no longer allowed to be able to live that your abusive piece of shit husband. So what they are going to do is make it so difficult for you to do these things that you just give up on doing them at all. Because these men and governments are realizing that patriarchy did not survive for thousands of years simply by brute force alone. It survived by blocking every other route for women's survival except for marriage and motherhood, and that's what they are doing right now. Thanks for staying to the end of the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you found it interesting and subscribe to the channel to support me. Also, don't forget to check out the videos in the playlist right here. Bye!